love. Yep, we are. We are live. Nice. Okay. Hang on, guys. Got to do just a little bit of sharing, and then we'll um, get right on to it. But I do thank you all for watching. I certainly appreciate it. Just need to get a few things out of the way. And as soon as I get them out of the way, we'll be able to go. All right. Cool. Now that I got that out the way, let's do this. Today's date is July 11th, 2020, and this is how the Frack We Got Here. I'm your host and most Will Buchanan. On how the Frack We Got Here, we do take the events of the week and try to make sense out of it all. Before I do get started, this is an adult podcast, so we will try to work on our language. But unfortunately, we can't do anything about the graphic nature of the videos that we show. So viewer discretion is definitely advised. Aside from that, welcome. Well, guys, it's been a rough week since the barbecue day. I refuse to call it the fourth anymore. But we've had a tumultuous week, but we kind of saw this coming. So we might as well stick with what's going on in Florida right now because Florida's always interesting.
Full price. In addition to a record single day death toll of 120, including the death of an 11-year-old child, Miami-Dade County reports hospitalizations are up 74% in less than 2 weeks, and the use of ventilators soaring by 123%. And 88% of ICU beds are currently in use, though the governor today pushed back.
You've got a lot of beds available.
The county's also seeing a staggering 28% positivity rate of tests being taken now, according to the mayor's office. The nation's infectious disease expert, Dr. Anthony Fauci, says the coronavirus surge can be traced back to states opening too soon.
In some of the states, the governors or the mayors essentially jumped over the guidelines and the checkpoints and opened up a little bit too soon. Certainly Florida, I think jumped over a couple of checkpoints.
There was really no justification to not move forward.
Meanwhile, demand for testing triggering long lines, so much so the governor's trying to streamline the process.
We're going to work on we'll do that at the Orange County Convention Center, is to have lanes for people who are actually symptomatic. Somebody is actually ill, they need to know whether that's coronavirus or not as quickly as possible.
Getting tested's one thing, but waiting on results from labs that are overwhelmed has people anxiously waiting for a week or more for answers while still possibly spreading the contagion.
Look, I have 8 people around me right now who are either going through COVID or who think they have COVID. But I have 2 who had tests done a week ago and are still waiting for results. And they're just going under the assumption, based on the assumption that they have it.
Even as Florida grapples with a deadly surge, Disney World reopens this weekend, bringing thousands of families to the state. President Trump's also in Florida today, not planning to focus on the pandemic, but discussing drug trafficking and attending a fundraiser.
It's an honor to be with you.
But as he campaigns, the virus continues to spread, with the U.S. seeing its highest single day of new COVID-19 cases. And the contagion
And that's true. Unfortunately, the coronavirus cases going on right now, but then again, Florida did open. I mean, Florida was all but yet open. And trust me, with Governor DeSantis, he is basically he's a soldier. He carries out Doritos' orders. Doritos sat there and said, as we're going to go into other stories about that today, where he just pushed things early. And Florida really pushed things so early, reopening businesses and things of that nature, allowing beaches to be reopened. And let's be honest, when the beaches reopened, did you see anybody wearing masks? Did you see anybody wearing? Did you see anybody doing social distancing? Did you excuse me? Did you? I got the Rona. Did you? I'm joking. I'm joking. But did you see anybody practice anything as far as preventative measures? No. So it's not surprising that the cases in Florida went up. And unfortunately, Florida is not the only state. Georgia had theirs too.
Dire situation tonight. Georgia set a new record for daily cases today. Atlanta tonight is going to announce a rollback to phase one, asking people to stay at home. And the governor is going to reopen a hospital there, a temporary makeshift hospital. And here in Houston, you can't get a COVID test right now. All of the testing centers were shut down at noon today due to extreme heat.
It's an agonizing scene on replay in ICUs all across the country. Critically ill coronavirus patients straddling the line between life and death. States like Texas now facing their deadliest week. The governor has extended his disaster declaration in response. The toll predicted in hard-hit Hidalgo County.
The community overall has not taken this virus seriously. In short, the tsunami is here.
Dr. Gary Meny is facing down disaster in Port Arthur, east of Houston, where COVID patients have tripled and staff is overwhelmed.
Now we're seeing young people, 30s, 20s, 40s, 50s, 60s on up.
Texas was among the first states to reopen, and despite the explosion of cases, the governor says he's not planning to shut down again. The top official in Harris County sounding the alarm.
Like that, if we don't do anything before schools reopen, we'll be opening the door to a huge fire. It's a forest fire. We don't know where it ends.
Houston Chronicle publishing an editorial saying Abbott didn't listen to coronavirus warnings and Texans died. Now a dire warning from the governor himself.
I think the numbers are going to look worse as we go into next week.
The numbers are worse in Florida. Nearly another single-day high of more than 11,000 new cases, and more are testing positive. South Florida's Miami-Dade has seen a staggering daily positivity rate of 33%. Tonight, Arizona has emerged as the newest hotspot, leading the country in the number of new cases. More than 1 in 4 people testing positive. Look at how average new cases in Arizona compare to New York, where cases have declined. But there are new findings tonight on the benefits of the antiviral drug remdesivir. Its manufacturer saying it cut the risk of death for sick patients 62% compared to standard care.
It's blown out of proportion until you're the person laying in CCU who has no contact with anybody and you're helpless.
Janet Shamlian, CBS News.
And yes, we unfortunately cannot just blame Florida. As you can tell, Georgia, especially the mayor of Atlanta, has pretty much reset everything back to phase one. That's how bad it is. And of course, we see it in Texas, Arizona, of course, in my home state of Tennessee. Mainly right now, it's more of the South having increased cases than any other part of the U.S., which should go tell you something because pretty much every governor in the South was trying to push forward as far as reopening parts of the U.S. This is why I keep saying this entire time, guys. And I know for a lot of people who are tired of hearing COVID-19, well, tough cookies, you're going to hear about it again. There is a reason why we say wear a mask. I mean, mask enforcement should have actually been done a long time ago. It actually just not got done, and we're just maybe 2 weeks old in Tennessee where mask enforcement has finally became enforced. And I have a mask, and thankfully because of my honey, I have a mask, which I can't wait for my Transformer Autobot mask. But that's neither here nor there. But mask enforcement, social distancing. If you feel sick, don't go out. Or, if, for example, if you just need to go somewhere, like the only times I go out, honestly, for me, is mostly food and going to the store. And sometimes going to a tool place because I have a tool purchasing impulse problem, but that's neither here nor there. But I stay limited to my home. I don't go out unless I necessarily have to. Everything really I got outside of food and some toiletries are here at home. Now, but the simple fact of the matter, social distancing works. I mean, the thing about it is, guys, we are not going to get past this anytime soon. Even with the vaccines they're pushing out there, Resmir, it is still, and it still shows some results, but it's not a coronavirus cure. for all those that don't understand, a virus vaccine can take 2-3 years to be developed. Even more so, 2-3 years after that to be applied, and we probably won't see the results of that until 6 years later, post the actual creation of the vaccine. Happened with polio, happened with measles, happened with chickenpox, things. I mean, happened with all these other viruses that have came and gone. There are no quick shot answers, but we can reduce the cases if we follow instructions. If we don't follow instructions, that's what happened to those states is bound to happen to us again. Even more so that, the next couple of stories I have, because you just get people who, well, they don't follow instructions because America. And this lady is no exception.
Go ahead. So you're in the store complaining that people aren't wearing masks, correct? Are you hiding now? And you want to say that you're going to fucking clap on me? You're going to clap on me. You're going to clap on me?
She'll be up here in a minute.
Thank you. So now you have nothing to say because you're sitting here with your middle finger up, blocking your face because you're a coward.
Yeah, I'm laughing at you because you're a pussy.
And you think you have the right to take your mask off to get everyone else sick. Meanwhile, you just threatened to fucking clap on me during a global pandemic. Are you for real? Is that funny?
You're funny.
It's super funny. I swear to God, if you touch me again, I will knock you out. I will knock you out. I will knock you out.
You think you will?
You're disrespectful to everyone else in this store. The entitlement is disgusting.
Yes, I am entitled. I'm white. I'm a woman.
You're white and you're a woman?
Yes, I'm entitled.
Oh, you're a white woman. Oh my God. Welcome to privilege.
Yep, exactly.
What does you being white have to do with you being able to get your way?
Because I'm a white woman. That's what happens.
You're a disgusting, racist piece of trash. Literally.
I believe in white power.
White power?
Yep.
You believe in fucking white power.
Well, there's no other answers for that in that case. That was actually taken in a Home Depot, obviously, where, of course, with masks being put out, there are still those out there that aren't wearing a mask. In that sense, where, of course, they did point that out as far as not her wearing a mask, and she tried to protect her face. Now, if you're wondering why she tried to protect her face, it's basically because social media works, especially for all these people out here who are really, I guess the only way I can say this, trumping it up, is because they are really acting that bold out there. Even so much so, this person decided to destroy, well, this Karen decided just to go apeshit at Target.
We meet the end of the road. I've been looking forward to this shit all my fucking life. So, Target, I'm not playing any more fucking games. This shit's fucking over. This shit's all fucking over. This shit's fucking over. This shit's 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 over.
This shit's over. This shit's over.
Yay! This shit's over. Woo! Yay! So this shit, get that shit off of my car. I don't want any of that shit. I don't want any of that shit. Get that shit out of here. Fuck this shit. Fuck this shit. No, I'm not doing it. Not doing it. I'm not doing it. No, I'm not doing it. We don't want any of this anymore. This is over. No. No. Gee, why? Why? You let everybody else do it. You let everybody else do it. Why I can't do it? Because I'm a blonde white woman? Fucking wearing a fucking $40,000 fucking Rolex. I don't have the fucking right to fuck shit up. I'm fucking.
They did everything that Donald Trump was elected to do. You can read about it on Twitter. You can read about it in the news. All of the deep state politicians. All of that stuff has happened. It's done. Okay. So I was hired to be the QAnon spokesperson.
Is coming here today?
I cannot. It's a secret. What do you mean? Like I can't give you any classified information. You don't have clearance. You don't have clearance.
Okay.
You don't.
You're a spokesperson,
yeah,
correct?
For the White House. Yeah.
Okay.
But call Donald Trump and ask him if you don't believe me.
Do you have his phone number?
Do I have his phone number? I'm on the phone with him all the time. I'm fucking wired.
Okay. I think we have enough here. Okay. All right.
Can you put down your phone?
No, I'm not going to put down my phone. Like I said, I'm wired. All this is being broadcast live.
It is?
Yeah.
Okay, where is it being broadcast?
Everywhere, all over the world.
All over the world?
All over the world on Instagram, yeah. Millions of viewers. So, say cheese. You're on candid camera.
Okay, thank you.
CBI or 1039?
CBI.
Okay. Melissa, what I'm going to have you spin around and just put your phone down
What?
first, okay?
I need you to put your phone down.
Oh my God.
I'm sorry.
Right. You're doing it to me because I'm Jewish. You're doing it to me because I'm Jewish.
I have no idea.
You're doing it to me because I'm Jewish. This is a Nazi fucking game. You're doing this to me because I'm Jewish. This is Nazi bullshit.
Y'all, there's oh boy, there is no words for that level of foolery, except that y'all, education is so vital, and in her case, it's. I have said this once, I'll say this once again. I think Doritos sometimes empowers these people to where they can just go out and do certain stuff. And I keep saying this all the time. For all you Doritos supporters, you don't have the same backing as your leader. Your leader pretty much has the seat of the presidential of the office. So there's a lot of stuff right now. He can muddy up the waters. He can call certain people in and things of that nature. He can do those things in order to disrupt, dismay, and get himself past a lot of stuff. You don't have it. And at the same time, in this case, this woman decided that she was going to tear down a mask station at Target for what? Because take it from what you will about the coronavirus. I know there's a lot of people out there that'll swear up and down the coronavirus isn't real, it's man-made, it doesn't affect everybody, you don't really need a mask, and you have people claiming that, I'm OSHA or I'm this and how mask doesn't work. The whole idea of the mask, and this is probably going to be the last time I mention this, because every time I see someone make an argument about the mask, here's the thing. The mask is not to prevent any type of coronavirus, okay? It is to limit exposure. So, for example, if you have the coronavirus, you have a mask on. No different than if you have the flu, or if you have a bad cough, or you're infectious, you're wearing a mask in a hospital. Does that mean that you're going to prevent someone from someone else in the hospital from getting what you have? Absolutely not. But you are limiting the exposure, which reduces the chance of you getting someone else sick. Everybody that's been in basic anatomy and has been in medical school has understand that a mask does not prevent the transmission of diseases. It reduces the chance of you catching it. And that's why masks are essential. But, aside from that, she really was a nut job. Hey, Alex, what you say? There's a second video from Target Karen. She lost her shit so bad that it took another customer to calm her down, saying she was on Karen's side, but had a gaither around her neck because she was using a mask. Karen was too dumb to see that. Other customers helped her get the mask into her buggy because she was buying them all. However, she didn't flip out on the other Target employees that was stocking more masks while she was scooping up the mask from the floor. I'm just going to go with nut job, honestly, for that next. But again, guys, just honestly, because it's the simple fact of the matter is, as we go into other stories that are going to involve the coronavirus, it makes no sense at this point why you can't wear a mask. And I've heard the complaints, well, I can't breathe in a mask. Yes, you can. The masks are airy. You can breathe. You just choose not to have one on your face. There's just no ifs, ands, or buts about that. But moving right along, guys, another story that I came up upon, and I know with police officers, I keep saying this all the time with police officers and their injustice against minorities. The reason why you said there's good cops, here's the thing. Good cops alone are out there. But the moment a good cop speaks against his fellow officers, he's pariah. He's reassigned, or better yet, he's fired. Which is exactly what happened in this guy's case when you hear his story.
I got a call from dispatch. There was a woman on the phone who was frantic. She said she needs help now. As I turned onto the street, I see a black man standing outside of his car, And I tell him, I said, well, we got a call about a domestic out here. You want to tell me what's going on? And he says, no, man, I don't want to talk. There's nothing going on. You can leave. So I'm trying to talk to him in a way that he will tell me, what's going on. And then as I'm running the trunk of his car, I see he's got his hands behind his back. So I ask him, I said, show me your hands. And he's backing away from me, and he says, no, man, I can't do that. And I see a silver pistol in his right hand. So I draw my weapon, and I tell him, drop the gun. He says, no, man, I don't want to do that, just shoot me. And I said, I'm not going to shoot you, brother, just put the gun down.
We hear over and over again about police shootings across this country. What makes this situation different, what makes this case different, is that our client, Officer Stephen Mader, tried to do the right thing. In my mind, I'm thinking, why is this happening this way? And then once he says, just shoot me, it's kind of like a click in your head, like he's being suicidal. It was a matter of seconds between me initially coming into contact with him to when the other officers had arrived. The other two officers get out of their vehicles, their weapons are drawn, and they're yelling, put down the gun, and then within seconds, as he's waving the weapon, one officer ended up firing 4 shots, and the last one hit the man in the head. He did exactly what we want police officers to do. He attempted to de-escalate the situation. He attempted to save R.J. Williams' life, and the Weirton Police Department fired him for taking those steps. Officer Mader had received extensive training on de-escalation and dealing with people who are suicidal through his time in the U.S. military. He was a Marine in Afghanistan, and he's a military police officer in the National Guard. So he knew how to handle that tense situation when it arrived. But he received that training primarily through his military service. We believe that our police departments really need to invest in both de-escalation training and training for dealing with people who are facing mental health crises. It can save lives.
Someone calls the police at their worst time. You don't want to go in there giving them the mindset that the police aren't here to help. You want to give them the mindset that they're there to solve the problem.
Now that alone should tell you a lot right there. Like I said before, I do believe, now keep in mind, I know I have my feelings about law enforcement, things of that nature. Do I believe there are cops out there that are doing the right thing? Absolutely. But I think that the ones that are doing the right thing and actually calling out the bad cops are the ones that usually get fired. As you can tell with that guy, he sat there and he actually had de-escalation training, which again, as you saw from the Now This statement, that 16 states out of 50 require de-escalation training for law enforcement officers. 16. And let's be honest, officers do need de-escalation training. Why is it that de-escalation training is offered in the armed forces, but yet is not offered in law enforcement? That alone is a scary thought to me. At the same time, we keep wondering why cops are always so quick to basically pull handguns on us, to pull guns on us instead of trying to de-escalate the situation. Let's be honest, the training for officers is already weak at most. For a lot of people to understand this, law enforcement officers are only trained for 6 months. You have a hairstylist, a nail technician, is in their training longer than a law enforcement. Do you understand? To be a nail technician, you have to do almost at least a year and a half. To do hair is almost to be a licensed hairstylist, you have to be 2 years. 2 years of training. Law enforcement officers, 6 months. Says a lot, doesn't it? But aside from that, guys, moving on to stories. Y'all, like I said, I was going to come back to coronavirus, and Trump and company have decided that your kid needs to go back to school. Keep in mind, I said your kid. And he is pushing hard for these schools to reopen, not realizing the potential dangers of what can happen by sending your kids to school back, sending your kids back to school when it is not safe to be out, period.
House Economic Advisor Larry Kudlow just a little while ago dismissing the difficulties of reopening schools.
Just go back to school. We can do that. And, you know, you can social distance, you can get your temperature taken, you can be tested, you can have distancing. Come on, it's not that hard.
Just go back to school. It's not that hard. When you hear that, what's your reaction, Sanjay?
Well, look, I put my parent hat on for this, and I can tell you, I think a lot of parents they want their kids back in school, but it is hard. I mean, these are hard decisions. We want our kids to be safe. There's evidence that kids are less likely to get sick from this, but we are hearing about kids getting sick. An 11-year-old died in Florida. It's rare, absolutely. I'm not trying to create unnecessary fear here, but as you get more and more young people infected, as is happening, you are going to see more and more people getting sick and possibly, sadly, even dying. I think a couple of points. We still don't know all there is to know, certainly, about how kids transmit or don't transmit this virus. A lot of the data will suggest they don't transmit virus very much, but you got to keep in mind, well, kids, especially little kids, have largely been at home since March. There's not a lot of data on especially younger kids in terms of how they transmit the virus. We also know it's hard in a lot of school districts to maintain 6 feet of physical distancing. There's just not enough square footage in a lot of schools, so the basic public health measures may be harder to enforce. And also, the idea that ultimately, what's going to happen if there is a big outbreak in one of these schools and a lot of people test positive? What are the triggers going to be to possibly having to shut down again? This is the thought process that needs to take place. It's challenging.
I just love the fact that, not to cut off Dr. Sanjay Gupta, but I just love the fact that a White House economic advisor is sitting there saying, just go back to school. It's not that hard. You can get tested. You can do separations. You can make sure that none of these kids will not get sick. You can get tested. We can do separation. We can do distancing. Where have I heard this before? Oh, when you try to do this for the general public. And how did that work out well for you? It's the whole idea, guys, of just the whole thing, which is so scary in my mind. We don't even have a handle on people going outside and doing social distancing right. We now believe that children should be put in schools under those same conditions. That to me is how you wind up getting more kids sicker. Keep in mind, children are petri dishes. I don't mean to put it that way, but that's the only way I can put it. I mean, I love kids, but kids are walking petri dishes. Anybody who's ever taught a class, anybody who's ever been a daycare provider, anybody who's ever worked in a hospital, understand that because of kids' immune systems, they are honestly petri dishes. They are where certain viruses and certain viruses and diseases can cultivate and have new strains. Those new strains can be passed out. And just like we're doing if we were infected with the coronavirus, we could turn around and be asymptomatic, which means we're not showing any symptoms whatsoever. We could turn around and infect people without even knowing it. So imagine if you put kids together. One of those kids comes from a home where someone has the coronavirus. That one kid gives it to 20 kids. Let's just say there's 20 kids in the classroom. Okay? One kid who actually has an adult who was infected with coronavirus, so chances are that kid could be asymptomatic, may have coronavirus himself. Brings it to a classroom of 20 kids. Even with social distancing now, that classroom of 20, at least 5 to 7 can be infected. So with that also being said, now that 1 has become 7, which that 7 can now go back to their homes and possibly infect others. So the transmission vector alone is scary when you think about it. All the more reason why I also sit there and say, as I'm about to show this next clip, is just that the White House is literally pushing for this instead of other means. Which amazes me so is just that, let me get this straight. You won't pay teachers more, which has always been a thorn in my side. You won't pay educators more. You won't improve the schools, which means that, open up more schools, actually introduce more technology as far as how parents and teachers and kids can actually have schooling in the meantime. But you believe that the fundamental act of school, it can be done if we just go ahead and put kids in there because kids are more resistant to the virus. There is no information out there that says otherwise. I mean, there isn't. even more so, where of course good old Governor DeSantis out of Florida. Well, he has a wonderful reason as to why he believes schools can open.
And the administrators that we all want to protect the safety of the children that are in schools.
The CDC director on CNN's coronavirus town hall, attempting to clear up the mass confusion caused by the president's shocking threat to withhold federal funding for schools that do not fully reopen, something he does not have the legal authority to do on his own, as well as his rebuke of the CDC guidelines.
We stand by our guidance. We think it's an important strategy for helping these schools reopen.
For months, school districts nationwide have been scrambling, trying to figure out just how to reopen safely, as the acting superintendent of the Houston Independent School District showed CNN back in May.
So if you think about students per table, possibly 2 students per table, or it might even turn into 1 student per table, as we think about having just about 11 students in a classroom at a time.
Since then, more districts have announced similar plans. Most recently, Mayor Bill de Blasio telling New York City's more than 1 million public school students they should plan to only spend 1 to 3 days a week inside a classroom. The other school days will be held online.
At some points in the week, you're learning in person in the classroom. At other points in the week, you're learning remotely.
Local officials have relied on guidelines issued by state and federal health authorities as well as the CDC. One of its top recommendations has been to maintain social distancing among students. The hybrid model, where children would be divided into smaller groups, rotating hours and days in class, seems to be among the most feasible. But after months of inaction, the Trump administration is now pushing hard for schools to reopen full-time in the fall, an endeavor made even more challenging as numerous states continue to see spikes in cases. In Florida, the Education Commissioner issued an emergency order this week requiring all schools to open at least 5 days per week for all students.
If you can do Home Depot, if you can do Walmart, if you can do these things, we absolutely can do the schools.
But some educators in the state are now saying they won't follow the order if cases don't start to go down.
I think it would be counterintuitive. With positivity cases increasing, with restaurants just this week being shut down again, for us to pack up schools.
In Texas, Governor Greg Abbott said schools would have to offer more flexibility. In Arizona, Governor Doug Ducey announced that in-person classes will be delayed until at least August 17th. In California, Governor Gavin Newsom saying that schools will reopen when the data says it's safe to do so. Experts say it didn't have to be this frustrating, but there still is time to get it right.
The time to plan is absolutely right now. In particular, when we think about healthy building strategies, schools have to be paying attention to and looking at their mechanical and ventilation systems right now. This is not something that can be started in early August.
So, a few things, Governor DeSantis, as you has sat there and said that, well, if we can open up Walmart and Home Depot, which are 2 of his biggest backers, by the way. If we can open up Walmart and Home Depot, then we can't open up schools, right? Well, 2 problems with that issue, sir. Walmart and Home Depot are considered essential businesses. They have to remain open. Otherwise, people would starve. People wouldn't be able to get what they need to survive. And same way with Home Depot, it's seen as essential business because businesses are still out there. Construction sites and things of that nature still need to find building materials. Therefore, Home Depot is an essential business. School in itself cannot be run like a business. It amazes me so that, again, I have this claw. My mole my hill I like to stand on goes in the way of educators. Educators, you are asking educators and children to put their lives at risk for what exactly? For fear of children being left behind, for fear of missing out on educational opportunities while they're at home. And I'm thinking to myself, why are we not, and again, this goes back to good old Betsy DeVos, who has literally wrenched out the educational system as we know it. There should be more funding in the educational system because, let's be honest, the public education system of America is trash. And at the same time, if we had more funding, if we invested more in the technology side of things, Like, for, I don't know, give every child possibly a laptop or a tablet. Make sure that broadband Wi-Fi maybe make sure that broadband Wi-Fi is more of a public requirement at homes. And the thing of the matter is, had we invested more in technology, schools can still run electronically, um, without the worry of coronavirus. Because honestly, I think that's where the route we need to go. I don't think we need to go the fact of trying to get our kids back in schools. Let's actually take the school learning to the internet. Let's actually allow our educators to fully use technology to where kids can still learn, kids can still be educated, and at the same time, they're not put in any danger. It amazes me so that people keep saying, well, what if we do smaller classes? Or what if we do staggering times? Or what if we do social distancing? It is amazing to me that smaller classes in schools get brought up now when before coronaviruses, they were too busy overpacking schools where there wasn't enough teachers and the fact that there wasn't enough open schools for overpopulated areas. You now decide that smaller classes are possible. That alone tells you the lack of actual thinking because no one is sitting there saying, we shouldn't be in schools, period. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but my school certainly wasn't clean when I was going there. I can only imagine the job they're trying to do right now, the poor school janitors are trying to do right now. But at the same time, if I'm an educator, I'm still not getting paid. At this point, educators should be screaming hazard pay. Like, where is the hazard pay that we're going to get out of this? Because you are basically telling us to go back into school and teach these kids, putting their health at risk and our health at risk. But we're still not getting paid more. I wouldn't blame any educator out there if they sat there and said, you know what? No, I won't. Because unless I'm not going in there without certain guarantees, without certain conditions. But even more so, I just think that there is not a lack of technology. And it's amazing in this age of all the things that we can actually do with devices and the internet and presentation, why are we not using that to the best of our abilities? Why is there not investments in that type of thing? Why are we not trying to reach out in different ways to our kids in order to better educate them? And I'll tell you why. It's because honestly, the Dorito administration simply doesn't care. There's just no way around that. If being that we don't have an educator literally as the Secretary of Education, I'm surprised, if anybody else like Elizabeth Warren, who's a school teacher, if she was the Department of Ed, if she was if she was Secretary of Education, I can see her say these same things. But I get it. I used to make fun of homeschool people. I used to. I don't anymore. Because you know why? We are the new homeschool now. And I see a lot of parents taking it upon themselves to educate their kids in the midst of us. And bravo to you. But at the same time, I just don't see the idea of putting people back in schools where it is more dangerous than ever to put young people together in the midst of a coronavirus where their cases are increasing on a daily basis, and the only thing governors can sit there and say, governors, representatives alike, can sit there and say, well, it's not that hard. Yes, it is extremely hard. It shouldn't be done. And that alone should tell you if you have to jump through all these hoops just to get kids in school, don't. Find alternatives. We have plenty of them out there. But that's just me on that note. What have you guys been saying? Oh, hey Darius, what's up? Just thought if every child has to go back, let's open these closed schools back up and hire more teachers for those schools. I mean, at this point, I would, if the coronavirus cases actually flatten to the point to where kids can go safely, I'd agree. But the problem is, the thing that we have right now, especially if you're in Nashville, we just have overpopulation. Like before this coronavirus happened, like I said, there were plenty of schools that were overcrowded. So imagine now you're actually putting in the coronavirus. In that case, those cases would only simply increase. We see that because the states that have tried to reopen, including Tennessee, we have seen coronavirus cases increase. So it makes no sense, because if you're going by data, it would make no sense to basically try that with kids, because there's a chance that you could double that or, more just because of that fact. And that's scary. But also what's scary is that, election year is coming up. And trust me, November is going to be definitely interesting, even more so with the coronavirus.
Election is fast approaching, and health experts say the novel coronavirus is going to transform the way Americans vote. If states don't rise to this unprecedented challenge, there could be chaos on a national scale. Look at Wisconsin, where the primary went on despite serious health concerns, and some of the people who went to the polls later tested positive for coronavirus, though it's not clear if that's where they were infected. Mail-in voting is a political flashpoint, even though it's already used widely across the country. Democrats are pushing to make it available for all voters this November.
This is about making sure that we're able to conduct our democracy while we're dealing with a pandemic.
Meanwhile, President Trump has falsely claimed that it's rife with fraud.
People cheat. Mail ballots are a very dangerous thing for this country.
And that it benefits Democrats over Republicans.
If you ever agreed to it, you'd never have a Republican elected in this country again.
Trump is lying about voter fraud. Multiple studies have found that there is no widespread fraud in U.S. elections, and that includes voting by mail. As for the president's other claim, who benefits, Democrats or Republicans?
So the answer is nobody. I mean, it doesn't change anything.
Both Democrats and Republicans have won elections with heavy mail-in voting. So why is it such a huge political fight?
Well, honestly, amongst election administrators, it's not. They know mail voting is secure. They know mail voting will be preferred by a lot of people in this environment, and it helps them provide for in-person voting for the people who need it.
Many states already had mail-in voting before the pandemic. 5 states automatically send a ballot to every registered voter. 29 states and Washington, D.C. have some version of no-excuse absentee voting, which means any voter can get a ballot in the mail if they want one, but they need to ask for it. And the remaining 16 states require a pre-approved reason, for instance, if someone is working during voting hours. The states with the most robust vote-by-mail programs built them up over years and put strict security measures in place. Ballots require a verified signature to be counted, and they can be mailed in or left at secure drop boxes.
Voters can, like in Arizona, receive text messages to verify that the ballot has been returned and in fact was their ballot. The state goes through a process of verifying that the person who voted the ballot is actually the person who was supposed to vote the ballot.
So you're kind of saying it's almost like UPS tracking in some states where you can send in your ballot and get a tracking number?
Yes, absolutely.
Voting by mail has nearly doubled since 2004, but that change hasn't happened evenly across the country. So what does this mean for November? It will be harder for some states than others. Take Pennsylvania, a key battleground state this year. For the first time ever, they're allowing no-excuse absentee voting. That's a dramatic shift from just 4 years ago, when less than 5% of people in Pennsylvania sent ballots in the mail.
The main goal here is to spread voting out amongst as many modes as possible.
Expanding early voting hours and increasing in-person polling sites can also help reduce crowds on Election Day. That means people who don't have a mailing address or need help with ballots can still vote in person while staying safe. In the countdown to November, states face a range of obstacles, including managing the increase in mail-in ballots and finding healthy volunteers to work on Election Day. These are huge challenges, and time is running out for the states to guarantee that voters can make their voices heard safely this November.
And he's right. Just a simple fact of the matter, guys, it's that whole thing of just, I am surprised. Like I said, we're in 2020. We are at such, and I hate to keep bringing it back to technology, but it's true. We are in such a digital age right now that there are so many things possible that we can do, but yet our voting systems haven't changed since the 50s. I mean, think about this for a second. We still have we're probably one of the very few countries out there where our election day isn't a national holiday. Like, I have yet to figure out why this is not brought up. If voting is so important, because all parties say it, not just Democratic and Republicans, but if voting is so important, why isn't Election Day a national holiday? Why on this day Why on this day do we not sit there and say, you know what, let's make this a federal holiday so everybody can go out and vote and not have to worry about having to work and then get off work and then find your voting place, then get in line, then not have to worry about registering to voting if you haven't done it in a while, or you've never done it, or it's your first time doing it, and then going up to the polls, and then what's supposed to take something that's only supposed to take 20 minutes is now taking up to 6 hours. Because a lot of people, a lot of polling places are being closed. So let's say, for instance, if you're in a town of a population of over 5,000 people or more, and you only have one voting place, the one polling place that y'all can go to vote, then that could turn into a odyssey of even trying to get something done when all you want to do is exercise your American right to vote. I have been saying this for ever since I started voting when I was 18. It makes no sense that, number one, we don't have a federal holiday for voting. And if I was running for president, that'd be the first thing I would say. We're gonna make election days federal holidays, because that just takes the release off people to go out and vote. Second of all, let's actually expand voting beyond this. It makes no sense that, again, this is being brought up. I said mail vote. I'm saying, as you see in the video I just shown, that voting by mail has increased, but there shouldn't be conditions on it. I think the simple fact of the matter is, if you should be allowed to vote by mail, then you should do that. Completely up to you. At the same time, if you can't get to the polling places, I have yet to hear an argument on this of why is it that we have not developed an app that helps us vote. Think about this. We have a device in our hands all the time, and that device is capable of so many things, and you're going to sit there and tell me that we have yet to come up with a solution on how to vote. If the president can send a text to every phone to annoy us, then certainly we can come up with an app that actually helps us to vote. In the same sense, like if we allow mail-in voting, we should have an app that helps us vote. We should honestly be looking into every area and every avenue to help people vote and make it easier for them to vote. And that's what should be happening. I have yet to hear a counter argument. Apps can be hacked. No. I've heard that. I can't tell you. That's the one time I heard someone say when I brought up the conversation is, why do we have voting apps? And the guy just said there and said, well, apps can be hacked, and just stopped. I said, do you have any evidence to support this? Because the only times I know something has been hacked is not necessarily apps, but the servers that run the apps. I have known that businesses that have been hacked that have created the apps, but never the app itself has been hacked. But I think we can get to that point to where we should have voting apps. I think we should. In the same sense where if you don't want to vote by an app, fine. You can apply for voting in by mail if that's your preference. Or if you still want to go to the polling places, let's actually make it easier. Let's not limit people to one or two. But I'm just saying, for the simple fact of the matter, let's all get down to the point to where we need to make election days easier. We should. Election days should not be fracking difficult, personally. At the same time, I can even go further and say, if you really want people to vote, get rid of the Electoral College. It is past time for the Electoral College to be abolished. And I will go into that one day on the podcast, on the How the Frack We Got Here podcast, about the Electoral College and why it needs to go. But for right now, just understand, and also look it up if you want to about the Electoral College, because not a lot of people know about it, and very few people even know how it works. But trust me when I sit there and say, we honestly need to get away from the Electoral College and go by the popular vote. Just saying, because if we did, there'd be different presidents right now. But that being said, guys, speaking unfortunately of presidents, the next about news I'm going to post, unfortunately, I did call it a year ago, and I'm not surprised. And again, it makes no sense, as you're about to see.
President and his longtime confidant, Roger Stone. Here's our Chief Justice correspondent, Pierre Thomas, tonight.
Tonight, President Trump making sure his longtime friend Roger Stone does not serve a day of his more than 3-year prison sentence. The White House just announcing the president has commuted Stone's sentence. Sources telling ABC News the president called Stone himself.
I think Roger Stone was very unfairly treated.
The self-proclaimed dirty trickster, defiant from the day he was arrested, but that smile disappearing after Stone was convicted on 7 felony counts, including lying to Congress and witness tampering. Prosecutors proved he obstructed a congressional probe into possible connections between Russia, WikiLeaks, and the 2016 Trump campaign.
This has not been a fair process.
Prosecutors recommended that Stone be sentenced to 7 to 9 years in prison. But after the president cried foul, Attorney General William Barr overruling his own team.
Did you talk to the president at all about your decision regarding the recommendations? Never.
Stone was ultimately sentenced to 3 years and 4 months behind bars.
I felt it was an appropriate prosecution, and I thought the sentence was fair.
I think you said you're no fan.
Did I say that?
Yes, you did.
Well, that's accurate.
But Roger Stone has a fan in President Trump. This week, the president was told his old friend was praying for a pardon. Trump's response, his prayer may be answered. Tonight, it was.
David, it truly was an extraordinary prosecution. 4 prosecutors resigned from the Stone case after Barr overturned their recommendation for that lengthy prison term. One prosecutor telling Congress he felt pressure from President Trump. David?
Pierre Thomas.
And that alone tells you a lot. Now, don't get me wrong, I did call this a way back that I said it would actually be, crap. Forgot the words I was going to say. Wow, I forgot what I was going to say. There we go. Sorry. Slow moment. So I was just saying that, it would be an impeachable offense if Dorito went back and basically pardoned everybody that the Mueller investigation had indicted. Keep in mind, the Mueller investigation did indict Roger Stone. It did indict Michael Flynn, Paul Manafort. For those 3, we still have those 3. One of them right now has been pardoned. And the thing that scares me the most is just that, wait a minute, he was convicted of lying to Congress, witness tampering, and obstruction of a congressional probe. That alone should have got him in jail for 10 years. Now, this is the thing about it is, the president's personal attorney, William Barr, decided to go in there and say, well, that's too harsh. But says he did not have a conversation with the president beforehand. No, there's just no way. You did have a president, or you did have a talk with President Dorito, or you've been giving your marching orders and sit there and says, get my friend out. And then at the end of it all, when he realized that, well, I can't get him out, he has to do some time, Dorito sat there and said, I can finally use my presidential pardon. And I said this a year ago on this show, that if he did pardon any of his friends, that should be looked at as an impeachable offense. It should be. But then again, I can see Michael Flynn and I can see Paul Manafort in the wings right now, because if Roger Stone got pardoned, those two are not too far off. Because this is what I sit there and say about Dorito. He will use his power to get hit to bail his friends out. So any prosecution or things of that nature will be really null and void. But again, it is scary to me that we have a man-child in office that will turn around and do these things, especially in the same sense of just getting out people who are effing guilty. Really effing guilty at this point. And he will bail them out. That says a lot, doesn't it? But aside from that, of course, the one thing I do have against Trump, as well, is that he is now saying that too many universities and school systems are about radical left indoctrination, not education. Therefore, I am telling the Treasury Department to re-examine their tax-exempt status and or funding will be taken away if this propaganda or act against public policy continues. Our children must be educated, not indoctrinated. This in mind is the response that he had back to where some schools will not open up just because the simple fact of the matter is just that he wants schools to be open. Even more so, he's saying, do as I say, or I will look into having these federal funding taken away from you. Trump does not have that power by himself. He doesn't. Again, Trump realizes that president and tyrant are really not two different things in his mind, because the Treasury Department, which would be Steve Mnuchin, he's probably going to ask him, but I'm pretty sure somebody in congressional law is going to go back to the president and say, you can't do that by yourself. You can't. But again, it makes no sense to me that he says radical left are indoctrinating children. Now, don't get me wrong. There is no, I mean, the only schools out there that I truly believe are indoctrinating anybody are pretty much religious schools, in my opinion. Now, I can have my own personal gripe about that, about schools that have a religious background but still get federal funding. I can have a gripe about that. Personally, I don't prefer to go to those schools. I'm pretty sure they're great and all that kind of stuff. Just not me. But the whole idea of him sitting there saying that they're indoctrinating children as he's trying to put kids back in school, to me is probably the most asinine thing that you can sit there and say, as the two things do not have anything in common. But then again, we shouldn't be surprised it's coming from Dorito, especially with Betsy Davos is pretty much making bank while she's pretty much destroying whatever is left of our educational system. Aside from that, guys, there is some good news that I believe that will still probably take a while for it to get wrapped around again. But unfortunately, the Supreme Court has decided to rule something against Dorito that I have been saying since the beginning of the Mueller investigation.
About President Trump's financial records, justices rejecting his claim of absolute immunity, including the two justices he appointed, likely clearing the way for prosecutors to get the president's financial records, but not Congress, at least for now. And of course, the other question tonight, will the public see any of this before the election? Terry Moran at the court again tonight.
Chief Justice John Roberts began the court's ruling with a ringing rebuke. In our judicial system, the public has a right to every man's evidence, Roberts wrote. Since the earliest days of the Republic, every man has included the President of the United States. On that point, the court was unanimous, all 9 justices rejecting Trump's argument that he is absolutely immune from being investigated while in office. Roberts declaring the president is not absolutely immune from state criminal subpoenas seeking his private papers, and the public interest in fair and effective law enforcement must prevail. The evidence at issue here, Trump's tax returns dating back years and other personal financial records, which both New York prosecutors and Democratic-controlled committees in the House of Representatives have subpoenaed. Within minutes of the ruling, the president firing off an angry, aggrieved tweet. Courts in the past have given broad deference, but not me. That's not true. Presidents Richard Nixon and Bill Clinton both tried to block court cases against them, and both lost in the Supreme Court, like today, unanimously. And today, even Justices Neil Gorsuch and Brett Kavanaugh, who Trump appointed to the court, ruling against him, while offering a slightly different rationale. Justices Clarence Thomas and Samuel Alito dissented, but only on what happens next. Roberts' ruling sent the cases back down to the lower courts, where Trump can try again, but only if he makes far less sweeping claims about presidential power. The White House press secretary seized on that to try and spin a victory.
So that language made it pretty clear that this was a win for the president.
And this afternoon, the president seemed to have calmed down a bit.
Well, the rulings were basically starting all over again, sending everything back down to the lower courts, and you start all over again. And so from a certain point, I'm satisfied. From another point, I'm not satisfied because, frankly, this is a political witch hunt.
But Cyrus Vance, the New York prosecutor investigating Trump, calling today's ruling a tremendous victory for our nation's system of justice and its founding principle that no one, not even a president, is above the law.
So let's get right back to Terry Moran live at the Supreme Court again tonight. And Terry, while the president was clearly furious all day long here with the court, it's still highly unlikely that the American people will see the president's tax returns before this election.
Exactly right, David. Under today's ruling, that New York prosecutor, he's likely to get a hold of the Trump tax returns, but for a grand jury investigation. And grand juries, they're sworn to secrecy. As for the House committees, they have to, under this ruling, go back to a court and show how the Trump tax returns are necessary for them to do their job as lawmakers, that they're just harassing Trump. The bottom line, as you say, if the public ever sees these tax returns, it's highly unlikely it'll be before those elections in November.
And I have been saying this because the Department of Justice, when Barr took over, of course, before Jeff Sessions, had sat there and said that it is the opinion of the Department of Justice that a sitting president not be indicted or investigated. Keep in mind, a lot of people have been saying like that is law, and it is not. I have been saying that. No man is above the law, including the president. And finally, the Supreme Court, the highest court in the land, had to sit there and tell Dorito, I'm sorry, because you're president, that does not give you immunity. And of course, yes, it's going to get sent back down to lower courts. Yes, Dorito and company are going to try to lawyer the crap out of this. but they have to do it under a different area, which in this case, which is why the poor White House speaker, who is now trying to do what so many speakers have done before, lie their way into something, is trying to say this is a victory for the president. No, it's not. Because the president sat there and told on the fact that, well, I'm the president, so therefore I cannot be indicted. And of course, it didn't help. The Department of Justice opinion pretty much circumvented that fact, solidified that fact, really. And now that the Supreme Court has sat there and said, no, sir, you can be investigated. And then he tries to sit there and say, well, it doesn't happen. I said, yep, happened to Nixon, happened to Clinton, which Nixon and Clinton both tried to do cases. Clinton, more importantly, was the White House scandal with Monica Lewinsky. You know, apparently getting fellatio in the White House is a perjury offense. Figure that one out. As far as, you know, embezzling money into a hotel. But, you know, potato to potato, I guess. But the whole entire idea of it all is just that this does open up for him to be prosecuted, even more so for the prosecutors to get his tax returns, which at this point, in the next story I'm about to show, which is basically going to be about his niece, says a lot about Trump and the whole facade, which a lot of people already know. He's a con man. He is. There's just no way around that. Even more so, guys, the other thing that I want to take away from before we get into other stories is just that the payment protection plan they put into place is honestly full of shit. And I know I wasn't gonna cuss, but sorry, there's just no other way I can do that one. So besides that, guys, it's the whole idea that the paycheck protection loans that were actually given out, unfortunately, a lot of it went to churches, specifically the Catholic Church, as far as the amount of 1.4 billion. Because groups that actually were affiliated with the Catholic Church did apply for the paycheck protection program, in which they got 1.4 billion altogether as a part of the Catholic Church. Even so much more that at this point, it does to me beg the question, you know, what is the church doing? What is the church doing applying for federal funding? Because again, the separation of church and state says a lot of things. But again, that a Catholic Church, which I'm sorry, they already have millions upon millions of followers, but yet altogether small groups that were Catholic received the same type of funding that was supposed to go to small businesses and minorities. Even Kanye West, which is also another, Kanye got actually, well, then again, Kanye said that Donald Trump was his father, so, you know, go from there as you will on that. But it amazed me so that there are still small businesses out there and minorities who are struggling this time period, didn't get the funding, but Trump's friends and people who back him did. So I still say that at this point, while a lot of people are happy that they got a one-time $1,200 stimulus check, there were Trump's friends out there that got billions in loans that they ain't got to pay back. And at the same time, for all those who are asking me in the emails, yes, there is talk of a second stimulus, but I'm going to be honest with you, there's not a lot of information out there right now, and chances are you probably won't see that until the end of if anything, would be the end of July, beginning of August, because Congress is slow to do anything to help people. And trust me, $1,200 is not going to cut it. Bernie Sanders had said it best to me. The best thing he's ever said was the fact that, you know, we should be giving every American $2,000 a month until this crisis is over. It should be point blank and period. It shouldn't take a struggle or a fight to basically give Americans money, which is basically our money to begin with anyway. But that being said, guys, I did want to show this next clip. It is a little bit long, but again, this was the book that I guess one of Trump's relatives is putting out about the president, that he tried to get blocked and failed miserably. But guys, the excerpt from this, as Joy Reid from MSNBC is about to say, I mean, it did confirm a lot, but wow.
Self-made Superman who's smarter and better educated than everybody else. But a new book from his own niece suggests what everyone but his base has already figured out. He's a fraud. I have no problem calling Donald a narcissist. He meets all 9 criteria as outlined in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. But the label gets us only so far. Donald Trump and his family have been fighting tooth and nail to make sure that this book does not see the light of day. His brother Robert requested a temporary restraining order to block publication. Perhaps one of the reasons the family has fought so hard to keep the book under wraps has to do with the fear that Mary Trump, as the best expert you can get on Donald Trump, his own relative, could tear down the false image that Trump has created, and which, because so many working class white voters believed it, helped make him president.
It's definitely a psychological analysis of the president and his father and how he became the type of person that he is. But the sort of plot point that you keep coming back to in like every anecdote about him, both with the family and in dealing with the public and in business, is just about how easily he lies, and that he will do so for any effect. And in this part of her family's history, she's suggesting that he does it basically for pleasure, that it's one of the ways he enjoys himself is to tell lies, even in front of the people about whom those lies are being told, and continuing to do it even though at least one of the people present while he's telling the lie knows he's doing so.
Donald Trump is just different from other people. Other people can lie and cheat, and perhaps they have reasons which we all try to understand in our kind of work. But Donald Trump is a true psychopath. He's, in common language, he's evil.
I'm sorry, guys. I guess at this point, Donald Trump knows we're listening, so apparently he's told Comcast to pretty much kill NBC's video feed right now. But pretty much, I just want to go ahead and stop in the middle of it just because it's just getting worse. I didn't want to mess with you guys' speakers. Basically, the book itself does, just give an excerpt. Donald Trump's niece is the one that's actually putting out the book, as pretty much just going from, and she's a clinical psychologist, it's pretty much painting that Donald Trump is this sort of twisted, lying individual that just gets off on lying. And that, so many other things from this book is really just explaining about how much of a con man he truly is. So I think it's interesting as far as that goes. Now, will that book be purchased? Of course, because there were so many other books, including John Bolton's book, Michael Flynn's book, everybody else that has pretty much ratted out on Trump, who has actually put out a book, has actually made bank off this. I'm not expecting anything differently. I just thought it was interesting that, Trump wanted to make sure that he wanted to make sure that this book did not get out because he knows. Well, I think it's kind of funny that Trump doesn't want this book to get out because half of his followers don't read anyway. So you think that he'd be like, yeah, go ahead and put out the book. But it's all about image. Trump puts himself off as this amazing businessman when he's really not. I mean, he even goes in the excerpt in the book where it sits there and says like the Wharton Business School of Harvard, where he went to. He allegedly paid somebody who was a good test taker to take his SATs for him to get him in school. It's also allegedly that before he had terrible grades in school, that his sister did his homework for him. So again, I know all this is allegedly, but again, when it comes from a relative, it's kind of hard when you look at the man and you hear the facts. It is really kind of hard to sit there and go, is it really lying? Or is it just the fact that this might be the truth? So, I mean, that's just the excerpt of it all. But like I said, I do apologize. The video just doesn't want to play. But getting down to our last couple of stories, guys, there is some new news about the Breonna Taylor shooting that I did want to go over. Like I said before, we're not going to stop following these stories, even though the media may not say anything about Ahmaud Arbery, it may not say anything about Dante Miller, it may not say anything about Breonna Taylor, but I am going to take it upon myself to make sure those stories are still getting said, because there is still justice that needs to be done for these people. But anyway, here's what we got.
Breonna Taylor's case, newly released recordings of police interviews shed light on what happened in the moments before her death. Louisville Police Sergeant Jonathan Mattingly led the early morning March raid at Taylor's home. Mattingly, with his attorney, interviewed nearly 2 weeks after the shooting.
We started announcing ourselves, please come to the door. Please, we have a search warrant.
Officers serving a now banned no-knock warrant tied to a drug investigation, using a battering ram to gain entry when gunfire erupted.
I didn't want to get shot in the back of the head. I didn't want to get,
Right, and that was kind
front.
of what I was getting to, is that, because of your positioning, initially when you're shot, and then rightfully so, you're returning fire.
Mm-hmm.
But Walker, interviewed immediately following the shooting without an attorney, said police never identified themselves, leading Taylor and Walker to believe it was a break-in. So he got his gun and fired.
I didn't expect, it scared me when the door got kicked and stuff. So my only reaction was to do that. I'm trying to protect her.
The return fire killing Brianna, shot at least 8 times. For some, the new details raise questions.
It was 2 weeks before they had to answer any questions about killing a woman. Yet, Mr. Walker, her boyfriend, had to answer questions pretty soon after an extremely traumatic incident.
Officer Hankinson has been fired, Mattingly and Cosgrove on administrative reassignment. No response from their attorneys and union.
It's been over 100 days now, and still nobody has been arrested or held accountable.
A painful case, unresolved.
And she brings up a wonderful point that the boyfriend, Breonna Taylor's boyfriend, was immediately questioned after the shooting. Officers weren't questioned until 2 weeks later. Now, I could sit there and speculate that they had to get their story straight. I could sit there and speculate that all legal areas were covered, but at the same time, it does bring up a wonderful point. Why weren't they questioned at the same time that Breonna Taylor's boyfriend was questioned? And at the same time, they said a no-knock warrant was issued, but yet they said that they announced themselves at the door. Whereas the other aspect was the boyfriend heard the door get kicked in and just assumed that it was a robbery. Again, this goes to show you that the officers in this case were in the wrong. Now, they should be fired too. I mean, one was fired. They actually should. One fire should still be brought up on charges, in the same sense that the other two should be fired. But I'll keep saying this because I never want this to get old. Because if you truly want to stop police brutality, if you truly want to stop police shootings, if you really want to stop them, take that police pension and give it to the family, give it to the victims' families, or give it to the victim if they're still alive. Because nothing hurts a policeman more. Nothing hurts the police unions more than knowing the fact that their pensions that they have for these officers are not going to them. And that to me would stop police infractions overnight. Even more so than this case of going back to the previous officer who had de-escalation training. That why isn't de-escalation training is being more offered in some areas? Because to me, this is just a whole nother oversight of why we need to make sure things change in this country, starting with our law enforcement. Because a lot of law enforcement have walked up the job, resigned, quit, all this stuff, because you've noticed they don't want to do it. They were happy with the way things were, and that alone should tell you off the bat how messed up our view of law enforcement is in this country, where we ask them to do things differently, and they turn around and say, well, I quit. Amazing to me. So our last story before we get to our good news segment, have you ever been to a Walgreens and said, hey, I wish a doctor's office was here? Well, you might actually get your wish, folks, because Walgreens, your local Walgreens, may actually have a doctor's office. Village MD, which is basically a small startup doctor's practice, has actually is a partnership with Walgreens to where I believe in about 500, 700 stores and about 30 U.S. markets will now have a indoor doctor's practice. So they can handle walk-up. They can handle just about anything a normal private practice will be able to do, as far as having walk-ups, having appointments. Because let's be honest, we all don't like going to doctors. They are needed. This is true. Doctors are always needed. They're always going to be essential. But have you ever been to a doctor's office lately? Little difficult to get seen. You always got to do appointments a week out. You always have to, coordinate around that just to go see a doctor for an hour? And don't get me wrong, I can't knock doctors because they do what they need to do, and much respect to them. But I do think this is more convenient because, let's be honest, you ever want to go to the doctor, get your prescription filled, turn around and say, oh, I'm already here. just go ahead and do it. I think it's a wonderful idea that Walgreens is trying to pass out. Yes, from a business standpoint, it is bound to make money just because like I said, if Walgreens has done it, I am waiting for Walmart. Y'all think I am kidding. If Walgreens has done this, mark my words on this day, July 11th, Walmart will have a doctor's practice in it. They already have everything else. You know what the only thing, actually, you know the funny part, one thing Walmart is missing? Walmart is missing a strip club. Walmart is missing a doctor's office. Walmart is, yeah, doctor's club and strip office. That's all we got. Because they pretty much got everything else. I mean, think about it. You walked in, they got McDonald's or Subway or whatever's in your known area. They have an arcade, which is kind of crappy, but hey, it's an arcade. They have a nail salon, so you can still get your feet and get your mani-pedis or whatever you call them done. What's the only, you can get photos done at a Walmart. But again, what is the only thing that's missing? Pretty much a strip club and a doctor's office. Tell me I'm wrong. But yeah, I just think it's going to be interesting to see. I can already say after that Walmart will probably be having a doctor's office. I think that's going to kind of be it's going to be kind of the normal because I see that being successful in the way of business. But again, who knows? Let's just see where it goes from there. So we have actually reached the good news segment of our podcast. Like I said, on How the Frack We Got Here, we do talk about a lot of events that are dark and are not so cheery, and let's be honest, they're just almost downright depressing in some cases. So what we always try to do, because it's the weekend, we try to make it happy. We try to make it fun, leave you on a good note, have you feeling right. And I think I found 4 stories that, honestly, some of them will make you cry, some of them will make you laugh, and to some of them, well, they're just too doggone cute. Like this one father who is pretty much singing a song to his daughter, and let's be honest, the daughter is just cute. And that didn't work the way I intended. Let's try this again.
Ready to sing it?
Yeah.
I love my black so much, so much. 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 Say we are strong and we are powerful. 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 I love my black so much, so much. I love my black so much, so much. And you should too. I love my black so much, so much. I love my black so much, so much. Say we are strong and we are powerful. Say we are strong and we are powerful. Say we are strong.
I'll be honest, that was cute. It really was. And like I said before, the girl, kids, when you put them in front of cameras, let's just be honest. The kids' personalities come out when they're recording. I know he was trying to teach his daughter to be proud of what she is and who she is, and just giving her that self-confidence. And I just thought that was cute as all get out. But I just love the fact that girl did not stop smiling the entire camera. You know what that tells me off the bat? She gonna join a sorority one day when she gets old enough to go to college. I see her joining a sorority. I'm pretty sure she's gonna be great at whatever she does. But then again, like I said, I always keep telling myself, me being a future parent, if my daughter does that, I love the fact I would have a daughter, but at the same time, the world would look. I would have murderous intent toward the world if that was my daughter, because she was just adorable. But speaking of things that are adorable, as I sit there and just tell about myself to the world, but speaking about things that are adorable, guys, TikTok. I don't usually follow TikTok just because it's a trend. It's not always, I guess, okay. Aside from a few friends that I follow that do TikTok, because they do come up with some funny stuff, I thought this was cool, and I thought to myself, this will be nice to share, just as a nice little, I guess, story of how this couple came to be. And again, like I said, I just thought this was cool.
Combo music.
cannot wait to see you.
And TikTok has failed me. So anyway, guys, what I wanted to show, just because that was actually a story on TikTok that I thought was cool, of just about a couple explaining, how they started out and the fact that they had kids at the end. Of course, with a residency, it's her being a doctor. I just thought that was cool and creative as far as TikTok shows, because you always see the shoes in front and the girls or guys always hop in them and, I guess tell a story. It's creative. I give it that. But I did take one lesson from this. Like I said, me being in a relationship, I've taken one good lesson from this. That apparently, if you're going to approach a woman in the gym, be shirtless and have a six-pack. Apparently, that gets you the number. Who knew? But aside from that, guys, like I said, that was just a cute story. As far as that goes, especially with the kids. And also another thing that I found out, that if you like wine and you like fairies, well, if you're in Long Island, you're in luck.
In fairies. News 12's Aaron Colton shows us how some are spreading cheer in these trying times.
Thank you. They are called the Wine Fairies of Long Island. And for the past 3.5 months, they've what they call dusted thousands of people.
You just make a little package, wine, goodies, treats, people do stuff for kids, and you bring it to somebody's doorstep. You can do it anonymously if you want, or you can sign your name to it.
Pamela Deal is one of the creators of the Facebook group that's now 32,000 people strong.
We're all stuck home with our children, like wine showing up on your doorstep to get you through the day. What's better than that?
Nothing. Yeah. Many of the people in the group dress up. As you can see, there's pandas, turkeys, Captain America, and of course, the pink fairy.
Dressing up as characters, it makes people laugh, have a good time. People enjoy it, and it lightens up their day a little bit.
You don't have to be dressed up as a fairy or in a costume. You simply just have to bring a little goodie and leave it on your neighbor's doorstep.
My husband and myself have just did about 400 other fairies.
400 houses Risa Fire and her husband have gone to during the pandemic, all to just make people smile.
Your jesting fairies are here. Pinpointed certain people that are going through hard times, single parents, people that just are not in a good place right now. And I love the reaction when I get. I'll be walking around and people are looking when I go on main streets and I'm dressed as the chicken or the poop. I get a lot of questions and a lot of stares and stuff, and I get a lot of laughs.
People need to laugh and have a good time, and I feel like that's what we're doing for people.
You sure are, Pink Fairy. In Farmingdale, Aaron.
Not gonna lie to you, a man that size in a pink fairy suit is giving you liquor. You just accept it. I'm just gonna be honest with you, because that takes a brave man to put on a pink tutu and walk around as a fairy, just dropping off shit. Because I'm pretty sure ain't nobody saying shit, but thank you. That's just me. But it's just so interesting to me where I just there and say, like I said, it's just doing something good. It's a random act of kindness. And even though it's wine, because I know, like I said, I know some people, like the one I'm dating right now, she is a wine connoisseur, so I already know off the bat, she would love that if that came to the door. I don't know about the guy in the pink tutu, but I think she wouldn't care as long as it had Moscato. Anyway, that being said, guys, we're getting down to our last couple of stories. I know I usually have 3 feel-good stories. I actually have 4. This one, because I'm not gonna lie, this one kind of made me tear up a little bit. Just because I love this cat story and the fact that he just didn't give up. And this man, I hope he does great things.
Came, but it did not come without the work. Rahan Staten from Bowie, Maryland, was determined to never give up. Growing up, his single father cared for him, and Rahan vowed to pay it forward no matter what.
Hey, David.
Tonight, Rahan, right here.
Time got really tough. I mean, food insecurities, housing insecurities. We didn't even have heat in the winter.
He said after his mother left the family and his father lost his job, he struggled. His grades suffered.
My GPA was like a low 2.0, and I got denied by every single college I applied to. So I just opted to go work for the local trash company.
But that job as a garbage man, 4 a.m. every morning, changed Rahan's life.
That's where my life changed forever. It's like the first time in my life where everyone around me just really picked me up and embraced me.
His coworkers encouraged him to fight for his dreams.
They saw something in me. They uplifted me.
Rahan went back to school, got his grades up, a 4.0. He was accepted at the University of Maryland, working 2 shifts as a garbage man to pay for it.
I'd wake up at 4 o'clock, go to work, clean my dumpsters, get off, go to school. Then after school, I'd go back to finish the shift, and that was pretty much my day.
He then reached for his next dream, Harvard Law School.
All right, let's go. All ready?
And this was the moment Rahan would find out if he got in.
All right, I'm clicking it. Congratulations! Oh. Let's go!
He is now headed to Harvard Law this fall.
I got into Harvard, and really it was probably just the greatest moment of my life, specifically because I finally felt that I could pay back my dad and my brother for all their sacrifices.
Tonight, Rahan's message on pushing forward, pushing through, no matter what.
Just love yourself enough to always give yourself what you want. Life's not always going to be fair, but it's not going to be fair. I can promise you it won't be fair, but if you put in the work, you stay disciplined, you stay hungry, everything will fall into place.
And so we choose.
Y'all, what y'all don't understand, I felt, when he sat there and said life is not always going to be, and he closed his eyes and did this, I felt all of that. But definitely give props to that kid because, he got into one of the hardest schools in the Ivy League, and the fact that he got into Harvard Law is great, and the fact that he sat there and didn't give up. To me, it was like watching Rudy all over again. For all those that have never seen Rudy, you can't watch Rudy and not have a tear fall from your eye. I'm gonna be honest. I'll go ahead and confess. Yes, the movie Rudy makes me cry. Only especially at the end, the man finally, Samwise finally gets into Notre Dame, finally gets in the football team, and you have Charles S. Dutton sitting there trying to keep him on the right path. And that to me reminded me of somebody who honestly just didn't give up, who, against all odds did succeed. And I'm going to be honest with you, when I heard that story, I'm like, dude, when you sat there and did this, he says, when life ain't going to be fair to you, and he closed his eyes, only people who have been through the struggle will understand that moment of you almost want to go, never would have made it. You almost want to go that route. I'm not going to lie to you. But the last story, guys, I got is, for those who have kids, you honestly have probably seen this. I've seen this with my nieces and nephews, and I still think this is funny as hell when they try to pull this off.
May want to try. You want to sneak it in between snacks. There's a little girl. She almost got away with it. Check it out.
You hear me? Open your eyes. I don't care that your eyes is closed. Put the snacks back in the cabinet, Amala. Oh, you sleep? Yeah, I see you. Amala, put it back.
Okay, look. Of course, even while sleeping, she managed to grab the gummies. She didn't take the vegetable sticks, but she took the gummies. Don't you love how kids think when their eyes are closed, you can't see them?
Right,
Can
right.
you see me, Mommy?
And then you see the little dog.
I'm sorry, that's funny to me. I have seen kids in daycares that I used to help out in, and I've seen the kids of some of my friends do that exact same stuff. What's the whole point? You sitting there, closed eyes, with the snack, like you can't be seen. Even the dog was like, bruh, come on, man, jig's up. She can see you, dog. We can see you. I'm a dog and I can see you. So I just thought that was cute, just because kids always try to get away with snacks. I used to actually just sit there and allow it, especially my niece and nephews. When I used to see them come down the stairs, they knew right where the snacks were, and I just sit there and stare at them and like, you did all that sneaking just to get that snack. I think you've earned those gummies. Knock yourself out. Or you've earned those fruit chews. Knock yourselves out. But it's just interesting to me. Like I said, it's just cute when kids just try to get away with stuff, especially when they know you're not looking, or just pretend that you're looking and close your eyes and say, I'm invisible. You cannot see me. I am like ninja. But anyway, guys, that's all we got for this podcast. I do thank you all for watching. Of course, there is a link above my head, so in case you do want to cash out the shows, it actually goes to help make the shows better. You are more than welcome to do that. If you can't completely understand, the only thing I do ask that you just like, share, and show the other show my show to other people. That might be interesting in this type of news. Like I said, the whole entire point of how the Frack We Got Here is to not persuade or change opinions or things of that nature. We are honestly in the business of giving you the full scope of all the information and allowing you to make up your own mind, because that's how you're informed, because we're just in the business of informing people. We are not Fox News. We are not trying to change your mind. We are not trying to scare you. We are just trying to give you the facts uncut and as we see them, in order for you to understand, in order for you to be informed, and hopefully be able to do the same thing for others. That's just the way we try to do things here. But that being said, some shameless promotions that I get out here, I call them shameless promotions because I'm always shameless when I do them. I am not the only cat that actually does podcasts. I'll start my buddy Big BZA Dot, which I plan to get graphics from him because he's pretty good at graphics, and I need to get it posted up to where he can show me a list of all his shows and things of that nature, to where you guys can see his beautiful, handsome mug, or as I like to call him, Gerald Levert if Gerald Levert was bald. Yes, Vaughn, you do look like Gerald Levert. Gerald Levert was bald. It's not an insult. It's a compliment. Take it. So, but Big BZA Dot on all social medias. He actually has a few shows himself. One of them is called the VSTs, as the Intercast he likes to call it. It's a news podcast. That news can be music, video games, or trailers. Highly interactive show like mine. He also has Rhythmness, where he goes over albums and rates to a 4-tier rating systems. Vaughn, we need a Rhythmness, man. It's been a while. It's been a while, sir. I need to know what music's coming out. I usually depend on you because I follow everything else that's happening in the world. You follow the music, sir. I need to know what music is coming out. Even though I may not agree with it, but I still want to know because I still want your opinion, because I still highly value you. He never calls himself a music critic. I think he should, because even though me and him have various taste in music, is the indifferences that actually make the conversation. And also, he has Random as Fuck. What is Random as Fuck? Is the pool of ratchets we sometimes dip our toes into to take a break from life and have a chuckle. Some bills make you think, some bills make you cry. He always puts them to a theme, and of course, the theme to me is always funny, sometimes serious, sometimes it's just, what the fuck. But all of his shows can be found under his Facebook page at ABBZA, or his YouTube page at ABigBZA. And of course, you'll be able to see all of it when he's posting on his Facebook, as he does live, and also does Instagram as well. My other brother from another mother, which I think he did his podcast from the gym this Thursday. He did a live Q&A from his podcast on his podcast Thursday. I'm talking about Thomas Reed, a.k.a. the Mountain Puncher, a.k.a. belated birthday boy, because his birthday was just this past week. But we call him Mountain Puncher, and he has a show called To Be Determined. What is To Be Determined? It is the To Be Determined itself is his fitness show. If you've never seen Thomas Reed on Facebook, all the man does is work out. And I mean work. I mean, he does work, don't get me wrong. But, when he's not working, he works out. When he's at work, he's thinking about working out. When he's eating, he's thinking about working out. The man does eat, sleep, and breathe fitness. But he also likes to be able to show what he takes his knowledge and what he has done and things that he actually likes to share with others, and tries to basically encourage others to do their best while he's still trying to do his best. Because you'll hear from him, although he says he's not perfect, although the man does have an 8-pack, but he says not perfect. But hey, at least he's humble. Sometimes way too damn humble. But again, his show can be found on his Facebook page, Thomas Reed, or his YouTube page, is number 2, letter T, letter B, letter D. That's 2TBD, as in To Be Determined. And also, it usually is every Saturday. I think he is switching to Thursdays now. But definitely give a look on his Facebook to see when he'll be going live, as he'll be announcing it. As for yours truly, I do have a few podcasts on my own. Every Tuesday from 7 to 9 p.m., I do have the Burned Out Podcast. This is my IT storytelling podcast, in which I tell stories to a theme of things that have happened in my real-life experiences working as an IT person. I try to make it funny, and if you're not laughing, it's probably about you. Of course, every Saturday from 10 a.m. to noon is my How the Frack We Got Here podcast, as you're watching right now. A little bit later tonight will be between 7 to 9 p.m. will be the Off Limits podcast, where nothing is off limits. I do mean nothing nothing is off limits because we are going to talk about Black Lives Matter a year later, just as far as what's going on right now and how Black Lives Matter and its effect on our political as well as social climate right now. So I'm definitely looking forward to talking about that, just because beforehand we were doing just some funny things, but it is time to address what's going on in the nation. And like I said, I'm looking forward to that between 7 and 9 p.m. tonight. Of course, on Sunday between 7 and 9 p.m. is going to be my Get Bit podcast. That is my blurred podcast in which we cover everything from anime to movies to comics to Comic-Con to video games. I try to do music, but music itself, it just depends because my music tastes are a little bit out there. But we also do try to cover sports, including wrestling, because to some of us, it's still real to us, damn it. And it was such a fun time to be a wrestling fan this week, and I can't wait to talk about that on this Sunday. But all of my shows can be found under my Facebook, that is at William Buchanan. I've been told it's very easy to find me. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. And also, all of my shows have Facebook and YouTube pages. So, if you do look up The Burned Out Podcast, if you do look up How the Frack We Got Here, The Off Limits Podcast, and Get Bit, that is GITBIT, all these shows can be found under Facebook or YouTube, and you'll be able to see every podcast I've done so far. Aside from that, guys, I do thank everybody for watching, and I always sit there and say at the end of all this, if you like what you saw, please let me know. If you didn't like what you saw, please let me know. I am just simply trying to make this format better for everybody to enjoy, and like I said, we are simply trying to cut down on the cussing because I understand, we need to be a little bit more better about that. I understand some words are going to slip out. That's just the way it is. But I will promise to be better about the language as well as as I would say this, let me take that back. We'll be better about the language on How the Frack We Got Here and Get Bit, but as far as the Burned Out Podcast and Off Limits, I'm sorry, those are strictly adult because words do fly on those shows. But I do promise that How the Frack We Got Here and Get Bit will be better family-oriented shows because I've been told by a lot of people they like to enjoy what I'm saying, but they can't enjoy it around their kids, things of that nature. So I hear you, and I will definitely take it upon myself to make a promise to be better about the language itself on those shows, so that way they can be more family-friendly. In that sense. But beyond that, guys, like I said, just let me know, your opinion on this. I always love to hear from everybody. And if you're watching this live, I thank everybody that was commenting. I certainly appreciate it. And if you're watching this on the replay, go ahead and comment us if it's live because I still want you guys' opinions. Because like I said on How the Frack We Got Here, it's all about staying informed. I cannot stress this enough. An informed community can make a lot better decisions than an uninformed one because an uninformed one got us Trump elected, and that's how the frack we got here. Hope you guys have a wonderful weekend. Also, I cannot stress this enough. COVID-19 is real. Wear a mask. Go out only unless you need to. Try to avoid people. If you're sick, stay home. And also, do us all a favor. If you see a doctor or a nurse or a nurse's aide or a doctor's aide or environmental services person that works in a hospital, thank them. If you see somebody that works for UPS, for FedEx, for Amazon, DHL, all those other shipping services, thank them. If you see a person in a grocery store that's working, or you see somebody that's working in fast food, be nicer. Thank them because especially if you see a trucker, definitely thank them because these are essential jobs right now that a lot of people are having to do in order to keep America running as it is. And also, understand that educators need all the help they can get, and now they're being forced. A lot of them are now being forced to teach schools, and we now need to let our Congress people know, as well as down to state legislatures, that right now there needs to be other alternatives as far as opening schools that can be followed. I'm just saying that if you can do so, please do that. But above all else, let's be smart. We try the other way. It doesn't work. Let's try it the right way. Thank you all guys for watching. I certainly hope you had fun and be informative, and I hope I see you guys again here next Saturday. Aside from that, be safe. Peace.